EduVerse PD podcast, brought to you by ProEd Education Solutions, your on-the-go professional development. Welcome to the EduVerse PD podcast. Today, Andy and Liz are stepping into the frontier of educational change as they explore learning in the Age of Singularity Technologies with Professor Serap Sisman-Ugur, featured in EduVerse Newsletter, issue 27. In this thought-provoking conversation, they'll unpack what rapid technological transformation really means for education, not just in terms of tools and innovation, but in how these technologies shape us as learners, teachers, and human beings. From the evolving role of educators to the future of learning itself, this episode invites us to reflect on education at the edge of possibility. So, let's join Andy and Liz.
Welcome back to the EduVerse PD podcast. Well, I'm your AI host, Andy.
And I'm your AI expert co-host, Liz. It's wonderful to be back with you. So picture this. You sit at a desk, a textbook rests on the wood right in front of you.
Right, the classic traditional setup.
Exactly. For centuries, I mean literally centuries, the entire act of learning relied on this incredibly clean, undeniable physical boundary.
You mean the idea that knowledge was out there and your brain was in here?
Yeah. The knowledge was contained in pages, or maybe spoken by a lecturer, and your brain was locked safely inside your skull.
So the learn was basically to figure out how to manually carry that information across that empty space.
Right, but what happens to that boundary when you introduce something like neurotechnology, like tech that feeds data directly to your synapses?
Oh, wow, yeah. Or spatial computing that monitors your pupil dilation to adjust a math problem before you even consciously realize you're confused.
I mean, it's wild. The bridge between you and the knowledge doesn't just cross the gap anymore. It completely collapses the gap.
It really does. It changes the entire foundation of education.
And to understand the nuts and bolts of this shift, we are leaning heavily on an interview and surrounding research by Dr. Serap Sisman-Ugur.
Yes, her work is absolutely fascinating. For some context, she is an academic at Anadolu University in Turkey and the vice manager of Sodegree GEM.
Right, she's a major voice in this space.
Definitely. Her whole focus is on the intersection of education and advanced tech. She's an internationally recognized scholar when it comes to transhumanism and the technological singularity.
Which sounds super sci-fi, but we'll get into what that actually means.
We will. And just to highlight how respected she is in forecasting these trends, in 2021, she was the only woman from Turkey featured as a futurist in the Elite 50 Exemplary Women.
That is quite the resume. So the core source today is her interview titled At the Edge of Change, Learning in the Age of Singularity Technologies.
Which really forces us to confront this collapsed boundary between human and machine.
It really does.
Yeah.
But, before we talk about how learning is changing, we have to establish what is actually causing the shift.
Right, the catalyst.
Yeah. The text talks a lot about this concept of the technological singularity, but, and this is key, it pushes back hard against the whole Hollywood cliche of it.
Oh, absolutely. She completely rejects the idea of just like super intelligent robots taking over school board.
Right. It's not the Terminator running your calculus class.
No, not at all. What's fascinating here is how she redefines the singularity specifically for the educational space.
Okay, so how does she frame it?
Instead of some apocalyptic AI takeover, she frames it as a threshold of integration. It's the moment we permanently cross from technology-enhanced learning to technology-integrated cognition.
Okay, let's unpack this. Or actually, let's really break this down, because the distinction between enhanced and integrated is basically the hinge for her entire theory.
It is. It's the core difference.
So think about an old school scientific calculator. You do the algebraic heavy lifting in your mind, you figure out the formula, and then you just punch in the numbers to check your work.
Right. The calculator enhances your speed, sure, but you are still the sole engine of the cognitive process.
Exactly. The machine is totally passive. It literally just sits there and waits for your command.
But a technology-integrated system is completely different. It actively co-constructs the problem with you.
Co-constructs. Give me an example of what that looks like.
So imagine a digital tutor, but not just a chatbot. A system that monitors your problem-solving rhythm in real time.
Like, it watches how fast I'm working.
Yeah, and it senses when you hesitate on a physics equation. Then autonomously, it adjusts the variables to test the specific age of your understanding and offers a tailored prompt to nudge your thinking.
Wow. So the system is actually participating.
Exactly. It is orchestrating the learning environment based on autonomous decisions it's making about your cognitive state.
That is wild. Machine becomes a co-participant. And I mean, if the AI is actively participating in solving the problem, deciding what info you need before you even ask for it, the physical boundary gets incredibly blurry.
Very blurry. Where does your brain end and the machine begin?
Right. And the text frames this blurring through the lens of transhumanism, which again is one of those words that makes people instantly picture cyborgs.
Yeah, people hear transhumanism and think of wires plugging into a metallic arm.
So let's clarify the actual mechanics of transhumanism in an educational context for everyone listening.
Well, broadly, transhumanism is the philosophical movement, exploring how we can use advanced tech to augment human intellect, essentially transcending our natural biological limits. But in learning, Dr. Sisman-Ugur points out that this challenges our deepest anthropocentric assumptions.
Meaning the assumption that humans are the center of the process.
Precisely. We have always assumed that cognition happens exclusively inside the human mind. Transhumanism in education suggests our cognition is now distributed.
Distributed cognition. Okay, a simple, everyday way to visualize this for you guys listening is how we use GPS navigation.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
Right, like you don't actually know the exact route to a new restaurant across town. Your phone does.
And together you form a hybrid unit.
Exactly. You steer the car, the phone processes the spatial data and satellite feeds, and together you navigate successfully. Your spatial memory has essentially been distributed to the machine.
You're relying on it as an external lobe of your own brain.
Yeah, an external lobe.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, take that GPS analogy and apply it to critical thinking or writing or scientific analysis.
It gets huge.
Right. The text defines the modern learner as co-evolving hybrid entity.
Hybrid entity, that is a heavy phrase.
It means you're delegating massive parts of your intellectual process to autonomous AI agents. Agents that can set research goals, synthesize literature, and coordinate complex data streams for you.
And the research takes this even further, right? Moving past just software on a screen into brain-computer interfaces, or BCI.
Yes, this is where the transhumanist concept becomes literal biological integration.
Because a BCI isn't a keyboard. We are talking about hardware that translates your actual neural electrical signals into commands for a computer.
And vice versa. The computer sends signals back to the brain.
Right. And the educational implications there fundamentally alter how we acquire skills.
Think about physical disciplines.
Yeah.
Like learning a surgical technique or playing an instrument. A BCI could theoretically read your motor cortex signals as you attempt the movement.
Wait, really? So if I'm trying to play a chord on a guitar?
And the system detects you are about to make a biomechanical error, it could provide microstimulations to guide your neural pathways. It would essentially accelerate muscle memory by physically guiding your nervous system.
Okay, I have to push back hard on this concept. I really do.
Go for it.
Because if a system is literally stimulating my neural pathways to ensure I don't make a mistake, my immediate fear is that I'm not actually learning the skill.
You feel like you're being programmed.
Yes. If a BCI guides my fingers to play a perfect classical guitar piece on the very first try, I haven't learned to be a musician. I'm just a biological flash drive for the software.
You're just downloading the physical movement without understanding the music.
Exactly. Am I actually learning, or am I just executing a file?
Well, that exact fear is what Dr. Sisman-Ugur identifies as the greatest tension of this era.
Really? So she sees this too?
Absolutely. She frames it as the battle between execution and becoming.
Execution versus becoming. I like that.
Our technological capability to execute tasks perfectly is advancing exponentially faster than our pedagogical readiness to handle that tech.
So the tech is outpacing our ethics and our teaching methods.
Completely.
Yeah.
And the chilling risk here is that learning shifts from an internal human transformation into just an externally optimized performance.
Let's really look at the mechanics of that optimization. Because AI-driven efficiency is incredibly seductive.
It's so easy to just lean on it.
Right. You sit down to write a historical analysis, you give an AI agent the parameters, and literally 4 seconds later, you have an essay with flawless syntax, perfect grammar, and comprehensive citations.
The execution is an A+.
The execution is perfect, but the student has been stripped of the struggle. We optimize away all the friction.
And in doing that, we sacrifice the value of not knowing.
Which is so important.
It is biologically and psychologically necessary. The text emphasizes that this messy, frustrating period of uncertainty is how true expertise forms.
Like when you stare at a blank page and you struggle to articulate a thesis.
You write a terrible first draft and then painstakingly revise it. That process is your brain forming deep, resilient neural connections.
The struggle actually is the learning. Going back to my guitar analogy, your fingers literally have to hurt.
You have to build the calluses.
Yeah, you have to endure the frustration of muting the strings and playing the wrong chords 1,000 times before it finally clicks.
If we offload the friction of the struggle to an AI agent, we might perform perfectly on the outside, but we remain entirely static and unchanged on the inside.
And so educators are being forced to confront a massive question. Is the ultimate goal of a school to produce flawless outputs or to develop capable human minds?
Because if machines can optimize our performance to an impeccable standard, the very definition of originality completely breaks down.
That's a great point. If everyone in a university is using advanced AI models to optimize their papers, the result is just a flawless sea of sameness.
Perfect mediocrity.
Right. Genuine originality seems impossible if the baseline is automated perfection. How do we maintain any sense of intellectual ownership over our work?
Well, Dr. Sisman-Ugur offers a massive paradigm shift here. She suggests that clinging to the traditional idea of originality is a losing battle.
Traditional meaning one human producing content entirely in isolation.
Yes. In an era of singularity technologies, originality becomes a measure of synthesis.
Synthesis, so it's about combination.
It's about how intentionally, critically, and responsibly you curate and combine your human intuition with the AI's computational power.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, because the entire educational model basically flips upside down.
How so?
Think about it. For thousands of years, education was built around the scarcity of answers. You went to a library or sat in a lecture hall specifically to find the correct answer.
Because answers were hard to get.
Exactly. But now, answers are the cheapest commodity on earth. They are instantly generated in your pocket at any moment.
So the value has shifted entirely away from the answer itself.
Yes. The value now lies completely in the question.
That is such a crucial takeaway. Curiosity and exploration are no longer just temporary hurdles you jump over to get to a solution.
They are the main event.
The text argues that formulating meaningful inquiries is now the central competency of a hybrid learner.
Because if you only know how to receive answers, you're basically just a passive consumer of whatever the AI spits out.
Your intellectual power in a hybrid system is your ability to interrogate the machine.
To ask the profound lateral question that the AI wouldn't generate on its own based on its predictive text algorithms.
Exactly. And the author makes it clear that we can't just slap a Band-Aid on this paradigm shift. A weekend seminar on how to use chatbots isn't going to cut it.
No, we need fundamental new competencies to survive this shift. So let's talk about the practical advice from the article for you listening right now. What are these new skills?
She outlines several non-negotiable skills, and the foundational one is epistemic awareness.
Epistemic awareness. Epistemology is the study of knowledge, right? How we know what we know.
Right. So in an AI-rich environment, epistemic awareness means understanding the mechanical reality behind the information the AI presents to you.
You have to know how the algorithmic sausage is made.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Like if an AI gives you a summary of the French Revolution, epistemic awareness is realizing that the AI didn't channel the absolute objective truth of the universe.
No, it ran a statistical probability model based on a massive training data set.
A data set scraped from the internet, written by humans, which means it is inherently flawed, culturally biased, and incomplete.
Exactly. And building on that awareness is another critical skill: prompt and interaction literacy.
Which goes way beyond just typing a command into a search bar.
Far beyond. It is the technical and critical skill of engaging in a sustained, iterative dialogue with an autonomous system.
Iterative meaning going back and forth, refining it.
Right. It involves constantly tweaking your parameters, pushing back on the AI's assumptions, and forcing the system past superficial answers into much deeper analysis.
And the text highlights cognitive autonomy as the ultimate safeguard here.
I'd say this is the most crucial survival skill for the listener to internalize today.
Yeah, let's emphasize that. Even when you are deeply integrated with an intelligent system, even when it feels like a natural extension of your own brain, you must actively preserve your independent judgment.
You cannot let the machine's seamless efficiency override your own moral or critical compass.
Never. And this requirement for continuous critical adaptation points to a major structural disruption in how we recognize learning itself.
The old model of education was very front-loaded.
Right. You spend your first 20 years accumulating knowledge, you get a degree, and you apply that static knowledge for the rest of your career.
But in the age of singularity technologies, front-loaded learning is completely obsolete.
I mean, it has to be. If the underlying technology of your profession reinvents itself every 8 months, a 4-year degree you earned a decade ago isn't going to save you.
The entire architecture of how we certify skills has to change to support lifelong, continuous adaptation.
And how does the text propose we solve that?
It introduces the vital role of micro-credentials.
Micro-credential.
Yeah. Instead of massive monolithic degrees controlled entirely by a few elite institutions, micro-credentials decentralize authority.
So they break skills down into granular, highly specific, verifiable achievements.
Exactly. You learn a relevant skill, verify it, and add it to a dynamic digital portfolio that constantly updates over time.
It basically creates an ecosystem of just-in-time learning.
Right. You don't have to step out of the workforce for 2 years to get a master's degree.
You integrate small, potent modules of learning directly into your life exactly when the technological landscape demands it. You become the active architect of your own cognitive evolution.
It's empowering. But constructing a decentralized, hyper-personalized, biologically integrated learning system carries immense risks.
Oh, massive risks.
The infrastructure required to make this hybrid human-AI ecosystem function requires vast amounts of personal data and immense computational power.
We really have to look critically at who is building the invisible architecture of these environments, because the ethical minefield here is explosive.
It is. The theoretical concerns quickly become urgent, tangible threats. The text lays out a series of ethical dilemmas that institutions are currently basically sleepwalking into.
Let's walk through those because they are terrifying. The most immediate mechanism of harm is algorithmic bias.
Right. We often want to think of AI as objective math. But math applied to human behavior and human data sets is never neutral.
Give me a scenario of how that plays out in a school.
So consider an AI system designed to assess student performance and automatically recommend personalized learning pathways.
Sounds great on paper.
Right. But if the historical data used to train that system reflects systemic biases, say a school district historically tracking certain demographics into less rigorous courses.
Or maybe penalizing non-standard dialects and essays.
Exactly. The AI will learn that exact pattern. It doesn't know it's biased, it just identifies a statistical correlation.
And then it scales and automates that inequality at the speed of light, masking the discrimination behind a veil of quote-unquote objective machine-driven data.
It's a huge problem. And then you factor in data privacy, and the mechanism of surveillance becomes truly alarming.
We're moving so far beyond a school server just storing your multiple-choice test scores or attendance records.
The immersive, tech-integrated cognition we talked about earlier requires continuous, intimate behavioral monitoring to even function.
Right, because if a student is wearing a spatial computing headset, the system is tracking everything. Pupil dilation, heart rate, microexpressions.
Even how quickly they click away from a difficult text. It uses this biometric data to measure affective states like frustration or boredom to adapt the lesson.
But that means a private tech corporation now possesses a microscopic emotional map of that student's psychological triggers.
Exactly. Who owns that emotional data set? How is it secured? Can it be sold to employers a decade later to predict that individuals' resilience under pressure?
The potential for exploitation is just massive.
Yeah.
And even if we assume the data is perfectly secured, which is a big assumption,
A very big assumption.
the psychological impact on the learner brings us to the threat of cognitive dependency.
Which we already experience on a small scale. Think about how many phone numbers you have memorized today compared to 20 years ago.
Oh, 0. That is digital amnesia.
Right. But what happens when we scale digital amnesia up to critical thinking?
If we rely on autonomous agents to set our learning goals, summarize our reading, and orchestrate our problem solving, we risk atrophying our own executive function.
We might simply forget how to direct our own attention.
And this raises an important question regarding transparency, right? Because a lot of this tech is a black box.
This raises an important question indeed. Many of these advanced AI systems operate as literal black boxes.
Meaning even the creators don't fully know how they work?
Yes. The neural networks processing all this student data are so complex, with billions of parameters, that even the software engineers who design them cannot always explain the exact mathematical pathway the AI took to arrive at a specific conclusion.
So if an AI decides a student isn't capable of entering an advanced medical track, but the school cannot explain the specific variables the algorithm weighed to make that choice, I mean, we have surrendered our human agency to a machine we fundamentally do not understand.
It's a profound surrender of control.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, as you navigate this landscape? Let's distill these key takeaways that Dr. Sisman-Ugur has laid out.
First and foremost, the clean, safe boundary between the human mind and external knowledge is gone forever.
Learning is rapidly transitioning into a hybrid process where we co-evolve with autonomous technologies. We are officially moving toward a reality of distributed cognition.
And your intellectual success depends entirely on how effectively you synthesize your human intuition with machine intelligence.
But amid all this incredible innovation, we have a vital responsibility to fundamentally reorganize education to protect the human struggle.
We must consciously value the messy, frustrating process of becoming over the sterile, frictionless perfection of execution.
Because the currency of the future isn't knowing the answer. It is possessing the epistemic awareness and cognitive autonomy to ask the right questions and challenge the systems that support us.
The technology is going to advance whether our pedagogical frameworks are ready or not.
The invisible architecture of our cognition is being built right now by algorithms that carry their own biases and demand our most intimate biometric data.
The singularity in education isn't a science fiction event waiting for us in the distant future. It is the threshold we are stepping over today.
It demands hyper-vigilant, active participation from every single learner and educator. We cannot afford to be passive consumers of this cognitive transformation.
We really can.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought to carry with you.
A question for you to mull over.
Yeah. If learning is no longer a contained internal process, and the autonomous tools you use are actively shaping the physical wiring of your brain and making decisions about your curriculum, how far are you willing to let technology optimize your cognition?
And where will you intentionally choose the painful struggle of not knowing, just to preserve your human agency?
Thank you for joining us. Keep questioning, keep exploring the edge of change, and we'll see you next time.
What a fascinating exploration of education in the age of singularity technologies. Thank you, Andy and Liz, for helping us think beyond the surface of innovation and reflect on the deeper human questions shaping the future of learning. To read the full interview at the Edge of Change, Learning in the Age of Singularity Technologies with Professor Serap Sisman-Ugur, be sure to check out EduVerse Newsletter, issue 27. Visit our website to download the full issue at www.proed.com.vn/eduverse. And remember, the future of education is shaped by voices willing to question, imagine, and share. If you have ideas, experiences, or perspectives to contribute, visit the EduVerse website and submit your article. Your voice could inspire educators around the world. Thanks for listening, and we can't wait to welcome you back in our next episode of the EduVerse PD podcast, brought to you by ProEd Education Solutions.